Oops. Alrighty, everybody. Almost forgot to turn the microphone on there. Let's see what kind of game we can get in today. Let's see what we've got. So from the black side of the board, e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, and Ruy Lopez is on the board. And I like this Morphe variation. Another exchange. Oh, okay. And then this is where I think that I can do this. Now my opponent can't defend both. So he has to pick one to defend, and then we get the other. So either we get our pawn back, or we get a knight. And so that's why when we do the exchange variation, we capture with the d-pawn out. It is opposite of what we kind of think of when we think about developing. We typically like to develop towards the center, capture towards the center. But in this case, we don't capture toward the center. We open up our queen so that as the queen moves up, exactly for this reason. Now, my opponent could try... It's really not a good way. They really just need to retreat. Okay, so they're going to give up a whole knight in this case. So we're up material. All right, so from here, we're going to just do some standard development. Yeah, got to make sure that our queen doesn't fall into any kind of traps. Actually, let's go like this, so that my knight can jump into the fray. Because I got to be really careful. Yeah. Where do we want to go with the queen? Because we're not trapped yet, right? Where do we want to go with our queen is the question. So push down. My knight's going to have to move. The knight can move here so that it can rotate back around here. So let's just go... We're offering a queen trade. We're up material. Getting queens off the board now would actually be really good. I'd be happy for that. We've got both of our bishops are probably going to get right along the e-file. I think. So I'm going to go ahead and make the queen trade. Notice my bishop is not going to d6 because I don't want to allow a fork. So bishop is probably just going to sit here. So we got the queens off the board and we're up material. So we are okay with this scenario. If my opponent wants to trade again, so be it. If they don't want to trade, I'm going to trade. We're also going to go ahead and get our castling ready. Okay. So let's just do a preventative measure so my opponent can't get the knight involved. Well, I guess I have that square covered. I'm fully expecting a pawn push, which means where does my knight want to go in that case? You know, we've seen it on b6 plenty of times, so let's just go ahead and get ready for b6. Ah, I could have pushed my own pawn up first. Is that worthwhile? No, let's just go b6. Get our other bishop into the game. Get our rooks connected. Those are going to be goals of ours. Okay. So we're going to get our outpost back for our knight. Now there are no pawns on either side of our knight, so that becomes a really strong knight there. I'm happy with that. And at any point in time, I can simply push and undouble my pawn. Pretty good. I'm happy with that. So now we're both... See, I'm directly attacking an undefended piece. I do need to make sure my bishop has a home. Actually, is there anything I could do? No, let's just make sure our bishop has a nice home. Now we have to watch because this bishop is undefended. But we can no, actually no, it's not. I take that back. It is defended. Now it's defended twice because we just have a spy here and a spy here. So we got to keep an eye on the X-rays. I don't remember exactly what they're called. I think it's an X-ray. I'm not sure. Okay, so I have a tactic here. Number one is I can put my knight. I'm forking both the rook and this backwards pawn. Now the problem is that does kind of get my knight a little bit stuck, so I have to be careful that my knight doesn't become stuck for good. We'll try it. You know what? We'll try it. This has been a fun game so far. We'll just keep trying things, see how it goes. My opponent is most likely going to move this bishop, this rook. Question is, where are they going to move it to? Excellent. Defending. Good, good, good. So now there's going to have to be a trade happen somewhere. And queenside is about to get opened up. So that's kind of what we want. And this is undefended, this pawn, and does allow us to circle around this way. My opponent probably could move the bishop back here. In which case, I'll probably capture anyway because I've got it defended. So we're pinwheeling our water wheeling. We're wheeling our knight around to help us out, but that bishop move did undefend that pawn, which was helpful for me. So I would like to swing back around this way. If my opponent captures here, I'm just going to capture with the bishop. Now I can also swing my knight around here. Not a big fan of this pawn, but could be worse. We've seen worse. So this is defended. I can even swing up here and back around. Mm-hmm. I have another slight tactic I'd like to get involved. Notice both these rooks are in line. So I'd kind of like to take advantage of that if I could. I don't like this configuration. It's got me a little nervous, but now I can pick up this pawn whenever I want. My bros are still connected, right? Bros for life. They're connected. My rooks are connected, and that's important because if my opponent captures here with check, I need to be able to. Opponent just dropped another piece though. So if opponent captures with check and I capture back, that does give my opponent first move to capture that rook. So these rooks need to stay bros for life right now. But now we're okay because we can swing around this way and this way with our knight. But we also have this. My opponent has allowed me to, what is this called? A spear? I don't remember the official term, but it is a defended bishop. But my opponent is going to drop material. My opponent does not have back rank issues because this knight being right in front of the king means the knight can drive around and park itself next to the king so that it blocks any back rank checks. So that's really strong to have the knight right in front of the king. That, I mean, in this configuration above the king. What did I miss? All right, so my opponent is infiltrating here. And then I'm probably going to start pushing this pawn. I've got 3 pawns here on the queen side that are connected past pawns. They're going to become pretty powerful here in a little bit. And if we look at the queening box, my opponent's king can't get there in time. I would like to get my bishop along this diagonal, though, so I can keep an eye on the queening square. One of these two. So it's a dark square bishop. Want to keep an eye on these 2 squares. I think that'll be important. I cannot put my rook here because my opponent could capture. This is defended. And now I've got an extra attacker on this pawn. So things are falling apart for my opponent, unfortunately. This is the only threat my opponent has right now, and I'm about to eliminate it. And my opponent does have back rank issues now. Actually, I should... I don't know what that was for. So my opponent can infiltrate the queening square. So I need to rotate my bishop around in order to get it onto an important diagonal. In fact, I could do it this way, I think. My opponent's running out of time, though, sadly. And that's it. That's all she wrote. So unfortunately, the way this game was going to go is all I have to do is put my other bishop here along these two diagonals, and I've got both I've got the queening square covered, and my opponent's king cannot infiltrate. So this bishop will protect the pawn here, so my opponent can't pick it up. And yes, I would be happy to trade away my bishop for a rook. I wrote my opponent's only active piece. Yes, moving my bishop here would give up my other passed pawn, but I mean, there's really nothing my opponent can do at this point in time. That pawn is going to queen. So, all right, that was a good game. I should probably tell my opponent good game. Well played. Let's take a quick look. So again, this is another provisional opponent. I don't know where my opponent is from, but they're provisional rating, so not the ultimate test against someone of equal rating. So it looks like their rating will go down before it comes back up, just like ours did. But provisional ratings, you start at I know we've talked about this 1,500, and so you get mated with people, or you get matched up with people who are also 1,500, and then each game you win or lose will adjust your rating up or down. So those first few games, it's entirely possible, like it was for me, to be 100% outclassed by the people you're playing. E4, E5. So we went to a standard Ruy Lopez. I went for, I believe this is the Morphe. I think it's called the Morphe defense. And then follow up here with this knight. That's the version I like to play. I feel like it gives me enough flexibility. But my opponent decided to go for the exchange, and in the exchange we take with the D pawn simply because exactly what happened in this game. Now the best thing my opponent could have done was just retreat their knight, and we get a pawn. Maybe do an early queen trade, or early queen trade. Now I'm up just one pawn. That's all I'm up, just one pawn in this case. However, my opponent decided to castle defensively, which gave me a whole rook. I mean, a whole knight. I hope I wasn't saying rook all game, was I? No, just a whole knight. Now, this is a massive alignment issue that has to be, that is very strong. Because if this pawn gets traded off anywhere, if this rook gets opened up, he's trapped my queen, right? So the goal now is to unpin my queen, and I should have done that a lot sooner. But yeah, inviting the queen trade since we're already up in material. It looks like the engine thinks, maybe it's finding different lines. The engine says trading or just developing is good. Yeah, and this, I think this was a weak move here because that's the only thing defending this d5 square, and it allowed me to rotate my knight right back. And so now my opponent has a backwards d pawn, but more importantly, I have this really strong outpost for my knight. There's no more pawns, and so this knight can sit here for as long as I want it to. But let me look back. The engine says, I was looking at this, but what does that do? Does it do anything? I don't think it does anything. So all of my stuff, all right, all of my stuff except for this bishop is defended. So now we get that bishop defended. Good. I'm glad the engine agreed with me. That was a decent move. But the evaluation by this point is so far in my favor that this was a fantastic move by my opponent. It allowed him to double up here on this row if he wanted to. He never took advantage of that, never doubled him up. But that's okay. He's still defending this pawn. Why would I go here? Oh, because it's defended. Aha. Did not see that. Did not see that at all. Oh, I see, because it attacks the undefended bishop. All right. Oh, and it's attacking actually both the rook and the bishop. Ah, okay, so that's the challenge. That's why you have to capture it, because you're losing material either way. That's really interesting. I did not spot that. It's funny the engine says that I shouldn't have. Oh, I see, because I capture here first, and it defends my knight. Engine did not like this move, did it? Just wheeling that knight around, man. That knight picked up 3 pawns for me. Look at this. Ready? 1, 2, 3 pawns. That's a powerful knight there. It did some work. And it ended up on a nice outpost after all. Yeah, this alignment issue. This was a solid infiltration, I felt, but the engine says that it's not the greatest move. Because it says, you capture my rook, at least I capture something back, But either way, the engine for me clearly says go ahead and capture. And this is defended, so my next pawn push is going to challenge the knight. So my opponent's going to have to move the knight right back. At which point I get another pawn move, which challenges the knight, so he can bring it here, but he can't defend both these squares with the knight. So unfortunately, he just drops more material, and then I understand he's going after the outside pawn. You put a rook behind the passed pawn. That's what you do, right? Rooks go behind the passed pawn. Well, in this case, it was too little too late. Ah, oh, I missed it. Do you guys see the tactic? Do you guys see the tactic here? As soon as my opponent pushes and I get my pawn out of the way, do you see the alignment issue? Check, and you pick up the rook. Check. Pick up the rook. Yeah, okay, so my opponent could capture that way, but there is a distinctive alignment issue here that I would love to have taken advantage of. Yeah, rook up defends, but what also defends is just defending. Yeah, push this pawn. A rook behind the passed pawn, and passed pawns must be pushed. Passed pawns must be pushed. Bad. At this point in time, yet my opponent resigned because there's really nothing left for them to do. Yeah, they could throw away material. Yeah, there's really nothing they can do. Oh well. Alrighty, guys, that was a fun game. Let me go back to the beginning. This opened up with Ruy Lopez. We went for the a6 pawn. I thought it was called the Morphe defense. Yeah, okay, so that's the Morphe defense here, but Morphe himself actually plays this variation. I've seen some games of his from 1890s something. I don't remember. 1860s. I don't remember. Morphe was one of the original grandmaster that we have recorded games for. Paul Morphe, Paul Charles Morphe, from America, I believe. But the exchange variation, when you see the exchange variation, do not, from the white side, do not think that this is a free pawn. That is a trap. This is not a free pawn. First things first is defend the square that you need to at least get one defender involved. Castle first and then go after the pawn, sure. But going after the pawn first, it allows the queen to get involved way too early. So, alrighty, guys, that was Ruy Lopez Exchange Variation. That was a fun game. Let me know what you think. Let me know about this whole camera thing. If you like it, if you don't like it, if it's too distracting, let me know. And I'll catch you in the next one. Alrighty, guys, bye.